I'd like to talk about the spirit of truth here. And once we actually do talk about this spirit of truth, we're going to find that it's going to directly lead us somewhere. It's going to lead us to this truthful understanding of Jesus Christ's proclamation that he wants mercy and not a sacrifice. That he's absolutely opposed to these throwing of stones. That he's absolutely opposed to the sacrifice of this God of Isaiah chapter 34. The spirit of truth is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ has clarified that after his time on the cross, that he would pour out his spirit upon all flesh. But in recognition of other proclamations that are declared quite plainly in the Bible, as it states, to he who has, even more shall be given, but to he who has not, even more shall be taken away. So if you have a firm, solid foundation in faith, even more can be given to you, even more and more continually. But if you have not a firm foundation in faith, even more of the sight can be taken away from you, and you'll become known as what is called blind by Jesus Christ. That this God of the world has blinded the very minds, the very sights of the understandings of certain of these men. So the Spirit of truth will grant sight, but to understand what that sight is, you must understand who the sight is coming from. It's coming from the leading of the mercy of Jesus Christ. So understand this mercy, and that it's not associated with any of this blood sacrifice, any of this supposed fire from the sky. We can simply begin to look into the words of Jesus Christ and receive the full understanding now that we're in accord with his perfection of his mercy. So looking at chapter 9, verses 54 through 56, we're going to see that Jesus begins to tell us this very firm understanding that he's not involved in this supposed fire from the sky sacrifice of Revelation chapter 13, verse 13, Revelation chapter 8, verse 8, Revelation chapter 18, verses 21 and 22, this great millstone that comes to destroy these supposed sinners. Now we know that, as I said, that Jesus is opposed to the throwing of stones. Before we begin, just keep in mind who this Ephraim individual is from the book of Genesis, as it describes this descendancy of Joseph as the very stone of Israel, that Ephraim himself becomes the very shepherd of Israel. So you would connect and link this up to the representation of Zechariah 11:17 that describes this false shepherd, this idol shepherd that is going to leave the flock. And this would correctly and consistently tie us up to the book of Hosea in his vision as a seer, to chapter 9, verse 13, that correctly clarifies the stone and the shepherd of Israel, known now as Ephraim, out of Jacob's own mouth in Genesis chapter 48-49, that Hosea describes that Ephraim shall be planted in a pleasant place while he brings his children to the murderer. In other words, the shepherd of Israel, Ephraim, the stone of Israel, Ephraim, is going to leave the flock. The flock is his children. This is in representation of the United States, of which Ephraim, the English, but also a multitude of nations, not just the English themselves. We see that they have united themselves under the banner of the multitude of nations, now being representative of the 10 lost tribes of Israel, that are all diverse nations that have united together to fulfill this proclamation of this fallen God, bringing this fire from the sky. So as we look a little closer here to this understanding, let us just simply read from the book of Luke, chapter 9, verses 54 through 56. And when his disciples James and John saw this, they said, Lord, wilt thou that we command fire to come down from heaven and consume them, even as Elias did, or Elijah did? It's both the same name. But he turned and rebuked them and said, Ye know not what manner of spirit ye are of. For the Son of Man is not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. And we can correctly pair that proclamation up with the entire video series that I did entitled Divine Forgiveness Like You've Never Heard. I'm going to keep this video short, but I'm going to return with another video. So as you can see, the supposed fire judgment that's coming supposedly from the sky, that we see so many people are touting as a representation of this judgment from the Father, is clearly clarified that he does not seek to destroy, that he seeks to make them live. Understand the difference and begin to be able to correctly divide the word. Realize that these agents that are posted on this channel are trying so desperately to get you not to see and to keep you blind. I'll be back.